What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Pitch Wars. If you followed this show last month, we did an episode. It was me and Durbin from Durbania on creating our own unique DCEU movie. And the winner of that first episode, by a pretty sizable margin, not to brag, was the script for Gotham. So we're going to have Durbin back in another episode to give him a chance for redemption, but Gotham was the winner. And this episode, we're going to be taking a left turn away from comics, and we're going to be talking about slasher movies. So, for my guest for episode 2, 1/3 of Scream Stream, Something's Rotten in Denmark, and his name is CP from Will I Like It Reviews. CP, say hello, talk about your channel.
Hi, that could not be a better introduction. Rotten in Denmark, I want that on a bumper sticker. Will I Like It Reviews. The channel's been kind of odd since I've been without a technical home, so it's kind of all over the place. At the most, I try to do video essays, mostly focusing on horror. Collabs with Lee, present company. Horror stuff is kind of heavy, but hopefully when I get back to a hard drive, that's another issue that's really affected things. It's just a mishmash. There's something for everybody to love and hate on my channel.
Yes, exactly. So go over and check out his channel, guys. Once we get done with this, he'll be back up in commission probably by the time this video airs. So,
hopefully, yes.
Obviously, we've been talking about horror, we've been talking about slashers. The topic for this video is going to be to create our own original slasher movie. Now, I'll let CP talk about his love for horror, but you guys know me. You know I love horror movies, and slashers are kind of the cream of the crop for me. I love Freddy Krueger, love Chucky, Michael Myers, Jason, all that kind of stuff. And we've kind of had a lack of slashers for the most part, with the exception of remakes, in the past 10, 15, some would even say 20 years. So this is kind of our spin on how to bring it back, to kind of inject some new flavor into it, bring back the things that we love that blew up slashers in the first place in the 70s and 80s, and leave a little bit of our own creative spins on it. So CP, what's your take on bringing a new slasher?
Well, I would argue that, listen, modern, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, modern horror stuff like Get Out, It Follows, The Babadook, they're taking horror and being a bit more subtext-y. They're focusing on stuff a bit more deep than, say, stuff like Saw, Paranormal Activity, etc. And that's okay, but mainstream horror, I would say slashers were mainstream. There's nothing like that. And the last time where the horror, or should I say slashers, had something to really scare you about under that layer of there's a dude chasing me was probably the slashers of the 80s. I forgot to, I'm sorry, can I curse?
Yes, absolutely. I'm fucking curse all day long.
I'm so sorry. I should have asked that before we started. So
fucking approved.
So fucking A right, I'll get started. So the big thing about slashers from the 80s was, don't fuck, don't have, don't fuck, don't smoke, don't drink and drive. It wasn't always about, killers. There was something extra. Jason was, don't fuck. Halloween was an extended version of make sure you take care of, or mind children. Stranger in the House, another version of that, which isn't really a slasher, but Nightmare on Elm Street, don't get too lazy. There's nothing like that today, and I guess that's kind of what I'm shooting for. Something that's dispensable if you just want to watch a bunch of teenagers die, but if you want to watch it 10, 15, 20 times, there's something extra there too. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to slashers, I don't know.
I would say so. But then again, we're slasher fans. We give all the credit in the world to those movies. So, right. Sounds awesome. I'm intrigued for your pitch. So I'm going to go ahead and let you start off with your first act. Give us a title, a director if you have that in mind, maybe even a cast. If you want to give us a brief little synopsis, you can, or if you can just get right into your story, I'll let you have the floor.
Okay, so I'll give you the director, Fede Alvarez, based exclusively on Evil Dead.
He's going to have to do yours after he does mine, then.
Is that who's yours is?
Yeah.
I guess we should have discussed things beforehand.
That's okay.
I have a lead, the villain in mind, but I'll leave that to the third act because it's kind of a surprise, a spoiler, so to speak. So our lead male, I would assume Dave Franco. You got to have a college-aged kid, and it's one that comes to mind. He's got a little bit of draw power, and I was planning on psychoing it and or screaming it, and he's not going to be around very long. So there, it happens in Act 1, so I'm just kind of spoiling it early. We open on a college in Southern California. That's somewhat important. A guy is having some sort of video conference with a girl that we do not see, and he's trying to get her to have video sex. There's a bit of a discussion. It's drawn out for 5-10 minutes, and eventually she does concede to the act, and he, very thankful for it. And, I guess we could throw nudity right into that within 10 minutes.
Damn right.
Because it is a slasher after all.
5 stars.
Yeah. I win. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
No. So that happens. We kind of fast forward a couple of days, and slowly but surely that video, it turns out that Dave Franco was recording the whole time, and that video makes its way out through the campus, and Dave Franco is denying it all the time. He's saying that there must have been a hacker. There's no way this could have happened. I didn't realize it was being recorded, and sure enough, he gets followed after an argument with the girl that's now humiliated because, well, the whole college, and now it's making its way onto porn, amateurgirls.com. I don't know anything about porn, so if you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. So he gets followed after that argument, and very, very disgracefully gets killed with, I'm assuming with something electronic, like it could be a cell phone, an iPad, some sort of, again, subtext. He gets killed by the thing that caused him all this frustration. And that would, I condensed. This is about, over the course of 20-25 minutes, this is Act 1. It ends with Dave Franco buying it. Much like Drew Barrymore, not very long for this world in Scream and or Psycho. You think, you're led to believe that he's the main character, or at least one of the main characters, and he gets murdered by the end of Act 1. But we don't know what's happening. We never see who did it.
Who shoved the cell phone up Dave Franco's ass? We'll find out in Act 2. Sounds good. I'm intrigued. It's got a lot of them classic slasher elements. If you've seen slashers, you're recognizing a lot of the tones that CP's going for, so that's good. Mm-hmm. That shows your love for the genre, if you know what you're talking about. Awesome. All right, Act 1 of Cody's script. The title of my movie is called No Stay. Also directed by Fede Alvarez. which film he does first, I guess, is going to depend on you, the viewers, on which one you vote in first.
Well, he's winning regardless.
Yeah, exactly. He's winning regardless. He's in the director's chair. They're just trying to throw him a script right now. He's in demand. Now, the cast for my movie, one thing that, I'm not the biggest fan of Rob Zombie as a director, but one thing that I read in an interview where he was talking about horror filmmaking that I've always agreed with and I always stick with is he said one of the biggest things that can kill tension in a horror movie is a familiar face. So my cast is all unknowns, if they can help it in Hollywood nowadays. If it's my choice, they're all unknowns or moderately unknown people. No Brad Pitts or anything like that showing up in here. So my cast is unknowns. The setting is an abandoned insane asylum, and Act 1 opens. Opens up with our protagonist, Craven, which is a good little name, kind of pay homage to the genre, in his cell, speaking to the lead prison guard who he has befriended over the past 2 years. Fittingly enough, the prisoners refer to this man as the Guardian, as he is the only one on staff that seems to care for the prisoners. This is the last conversation that Craven will ever have, as he is scheduled to die by lethal injection within the hour for the accidental murder of a man in a home invasion gone wrong. Upon saying goodbye, he is removed and given his last walk alongside the Guardian. He's lethally injected in front of his victim's family, one of which proceeds to spit on the glass and condemns him to hell. As the poison takes effect, Craven's eyes fade to black. Unfortunately for Craven, being condemned to hell would have been a much simpler fate. He awakens, face down on a cold tile floor, with a light flickering. The flickering glow of light strain his eyes as he looks around and finds himself in a deteriorating hospital room. He walks out into the cold darkness of the hallway to find 5 other men emerging from their own separate rooms. Amidst the confusion, a sinister, distorted voice comes over the intercom system. "Welcome, gentlemen. Just to ease your minds, you should know that you have not yet reached a place for your eternal damnation. No, that comes later. You have all caused pain and suffering beyond measure and have yet to experience your own fair share. I am here to rectify that." The killer then announces the names and the horrific crimes of all 6 men, ending with Craven. "You have all died once already. Make no mistake, the second time will be much, much worse." The sinister voice is cut off by static and silence. The 6 men panic and argue over the confusion and paranoia that is quickly consuming them all. Craven chooses to take a quieter approach and begins to plan his escape from this nightmare. End Act 1.
You paint a much prettier picture than I do. I'm giving an elevator pitch, and you're all painting beautiful scenery.
I'm all about tone. I'm all about the everything going on around you, the setting, the cinematography, all that kind of stuff. So I try to verbalize all of that without having a movie in front of me.
The cool October wind rustles the feathers.
Yes, exactly. The bloodied grass breathes in the wind air.
The crimson rolls down his chest.
Yeah, exactly. Getting all fucking T.S. Eliot over here. All right. Well, that's kind of my setting. Like that's the most condensed of all of my acts because a lot of it has to do with stylistic camera work and everything like that, and showing each of the men's crimes, kind of like they're getting set up for a gigantic WWE match or something like that. And then also there's a lot of dialogue between him and the Guardian in the opening of the movie, which I didn't, honestly, just admitting I didn't take the time to write all of that out when I first wrote this, but it'll be a lot of kind of a slow burn up to this ultimate reveal that he's not dead and he's about to get some pain inflicted upon him by somebody. So whenever you're ready, act to me.
So your first act was probably your most condensed pitch. So my second act will be my most condensed. So the act 2 opens with us being a little bit in the future, maybe 2-3 years. And the new thing is there's this new app, this new website, whatever you want to call it. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter. It's just imagine a one-stop shop for everything social. This is now the biggest thing in the world, which doesn't seem too far-fetched by today's standards. And it's the craze. Everybody's doing everything through it. Again, a bunch of no-names. I guess you could kind of get to know some of these people, but you know why you're getting to know them if you know slashers. They're cannon fodder. Mm-hmm. We could open with one guy on an Omegle version of this app. It's all a central hub. So he's waiting for somebody to drop in while he's sitting there while you see his navel, and he's just trying to get his rocks off just to any random person. We won't be sex specific. It could be a guy, could be a girl. He's just trying to get his rocks off. He does. It turns out that the person just there's no image, but he's turned on by the words that are on the screen, and he gets his rocks off. Again, you can have nudity. I don't know if you can for an erection, but I don't know. You complain to the right people, but that's neither here nor there.
Equal opportunity nudity.
Sure. Listen, I'm 50-50. It's just, I guess I'd have to be unaroused. It's so strange how nudity works in Hollywood. So anyway, there's this guy. We don't see him again. couple days later, it's a different version of it. It's Twitter. It's some girl trying to be slutty, and she's posting all these images, and she gets responses from people, and it's a bit unwarranted, a bit unwelcome. People are reposting her stuff, and she goes missing, and the people that are reposting go missing. Likewise, it's again condensed. You go down the chain, pick a way to be a stupid idiot teenager on social media, and it gets exploited. Somebody exploits themselves, and they go bye-bye. So it turns out that all these people that have gone missing, they've paid a horrible price. They died for their stupidity, and so I'll say it now. My movie is a spiritual remake to Friday the 13th. So it's the lesson is not to be a moron, and we start getting that somewhere towards the end of the second act, that these things are happening to these people because they're just idiots. There's things you shouldn't do on the internet, and they're learning the very hard way that's what's happening to them. You should have a little bit of reserve, and trust what it is you're doing, and not just put your life out there. We find out all these people are dead, and to take a page out of something like Alien's book, they die in very suggestive ways. I'm thinking the magazine scene where Sigourney Weaver basically gets mouth raped, very suggestive. I mean, all of Alien is just it's again going back to subtext. It's all about sex. It's all about sex. So with that theme in mind, just imagine, again going back to the phone or iPad death, just along those lines. Whatever method these people used to exploit themselves, they're paying a horrible price. Maybe one scene, someone gets a laptop crushed over their skull or something, because it is a slasher, and that's basically what slashers are, is creative deaths. Insert fun and exploitive ways to die here. But slowly but surely, we start figuring out that there's one big connection to all of this, and it's this site. All of these people use this site, and they're paying a dear price. That's the end of Act 2.
I think I have a title for your movie.
Okay, I guess I could say the titles now, but by all means, go ahead.
Blood Tinder.
That is pretty good. See, I was thinking of shitty, like, another thing about slashers is the good ones, they have really, like Friday the 13th. They made
Doesn't
that
tell
movie,
you shit.
They made that movie on the title. They had nothing else but the title, and they got to sell it. Halloween, creepy. Trick or Treat, creepy. Nightmare on Elm Street, creepy. But I can't think of anything social that's really creepy. I have 3 titles that are spam, blocked. The Virus is probably the one that I think is the most. I don't know. I'll trust Fetty to get the title done.
Like, share, die. There we go.
There it is. It sounds a little B movie, but it works.
Hey, there we go. Exactly. Go with this all day. All right, cool. Awesome. Act 2 of No Stay. The smallest of the 6 men, Travis, has trailed off from the others to find his own way out. He finds the entrance to the asylum chained and deadbolted shut. The windows have all been welded over with steel plates, and the air is thick with heat and the taste of death. While continuing to struggle with the chains, a dark figure appears behind Travis. Travis turns around to see the figure standing and staring. After a few profane taunts from Travis, the figure pulls his hand to the side, revealing a modified and sharpened bone saw. The figure approaches Travis, who tries to swing at him and misses. Effortlessly lifting the 110-pound rapist, the figure holds Travis by his throat against the wall and begins sawing across the opening of his mouth until the saw touches drywall. 2 men named Liam and Jeff are teamed up in exploring what remains of the cafeteria. They figure if anything is left to be used as a weapon, surely it will be found here. The kitchen is empty except for a few ovens that haven't lit in years and the sinks which are filled to the top with a brown and rust-colored water. They search all the cabinets, the pantry, and look through the overturned and piled up tables. The only weapon they can manage to find is a piece of steel rod from a table that is just rusted enough for Liam to tear loose. While arguing over who should wield the steel rod, the doors to the cafeteria slam shut. The silence of the two men become deafening as they stand back to back, awaiting something or someone to appear. As the tension of Liam starts to ease, he turns to talk to Jeff only to see him 3 feet off the ground, flailing and strangling by a long length of razor wire. The figure is standing on the overlooking catwalk, lifting Jeff up further while moving the razor wire from side to side. As Liam struggles to pull Jeff down, the cuts of the wire begin to go deeper. Liam gives one final tug to try and free Jeff and decapitates him by mistake, dropping his torso onto himself, covering his face with the gushing blood. Liam panics, shoving the corpse to the side and frantically wiping his eyes and face to try to see. His vision is blurred in the darkness, so he slowly guides himself back to the sinks. Liam tries to turn on the faucets, but no clean water is coming out. While struggling to clean his eyes, the figure intentionally knocks over a chair to startle Liam. Liam holds the rusted rod out and frantically looks in all directions, trying to catch a glimpse of his antagonist. Another chair falls, sending Liam into an even greater state of panic. A third chair falls behind Liam and he snaps around to find himself face to face with the figure. Liam swings the rod only to have his hand caught by the figure and twisted around his back. The figure slowly forces Liam's face into the cesspool filling the sink. As he loses breath and consciousness, Liam flails his only remaining arm around and splashes continuously, trying to get even the smallest gasp of breath. His consciousness starts to fade as the figure's grip gets tighter. Just before passing out, the figure pulls Liam's head from the water as he frantically gasps for breath with both arms just before the rusted and jagged end of the steel rod gets shoved through the back of his neck and out through his face. Craven has made no attempt to talk or help the two men, Strick and Wesley, that went with him to find a security station. The two men clearly have a history as they spend more time arguing than trying to find a way out of the situation. One of the main topics of discussion among the two men is their extreme distrust of Craven and his standoff nature. They manage to find an office at the end of the cell block with a locked door and boarded up windows. Strick, being a very large and muscular convict, begins to pull down boards with his bare hands, revealing an old guard shack. Craven climbs through the now open window while the other two men keep a lookout. They try to use the phone to no avail. The computer monitors have all been busted except for one, which reveals a small glowing green light at the bottom, indicating that the power is still on. Craven turns on the computer, begins to search through the system for some way to contact the outside world. After scouring the computer for 15 minutes, Craven finds that the internet is accessible, but only allows messages to be received by one recipient, titled Harvester. There are messages dating back years, all detailing prices for something that is uncertain. The most recent message says the price for 6 is $18,000. Craven works this out to mean that someone has paid money to fake their deaths and have them delivered to this game. Craven comes across a working camera feed and begins switching POVs to different areas of the asylum. He goes from empty room to empty room. He reaches the entrance with a chain door, now covered in blood. He pans across the now empty cafeteria and the large pool of blood that now paints the floor. Another couple of feeds of empty and silent rooms. He clicks the mouse one more time to reveal the figure looking directly into the camera on the outside of the shack. The figure is finally revealed to be wearing some form of riot gear and a weathered balaclava, the little hoodie mask with the eyes and the mouth opened up, for anybody that doesn't recognize the term. With a weathered balaclava face mask with a skull jaw painted on it. Only the eyes of the killer are shown, to which Craven silently stares into as the figure lifts the half-severed head of Travis to cover up the top half of his own head, leaving only the skull jaw to be seen. Craven grabs the nearest object to defend himself and turns to stare at the open window. He looks back at the camera feed, which reveals the figure is now gone. Craven cautiously leaves the guard shack and continues to search for a way out. End Act 2.
Yours is certainly prettier sounding. That's for damn certain.
I have a way with words, CP. I have a way with words. I'm trying to focus mostly on my script being one of the big aspects of slasher movies or horror movies really in general that I think has lacked a lot in the past, decade or possibly even 2 decades is really inventive and creative kills.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where my jumping point off of was for the Act 2. I kind of figured out how I wanted people to die and then built a story around that. So that's kind of what I was going for.
I'm with you. I just smoothed mine over.
Yeah.
I was more about, well, it could be suggestive, but it's all about the subtext. So, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So am I going into my third act? Yeah, okay.
Whenever you're ready.
All right. So it turns out that we have a detective that's now suspicious that everything, all these people are going missing and dying. Well, at this point, the detective doesn't know that all these people are dead. But he figures out, wait a minute, this is all because of some sort of thing that they put on this face smash Twitter. What'd you call it? Blood Tinder?
Blood Tinder.
Yeah. I think that's it. Blood Tinder. This new version of everything. So he finds out that the creator of this service, this social media juggernaut, is none other than Rooney Mara. Not herself. It's the actress Rooney Mara playing the character who is the creator. Is
this girl with the dragon tattoo Rooney Mara or Nightmare on Elm Street remake Rooney Mara?
Well, considering Rooney Mara got nude quite a bit in Girl with the Dragon tattoo, but we'll go with that one.
Good choice.
Mm-hmm. She probably could have that look a little bit too, and I guess that's spoiling the end. But it turns out that this detective sets up a meeting with her because she's the Mark Zuckerberg of 4 or 5 years from now. They get into a discussion about is there any way that all this could be linked? Does she have any idea? They start opening up. And she says, well, if anything, I really want to help you because I had a similar event happen to me a couple of years ago where I was exploited over the internet. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this, so that, there is this safe environment where everybody could just have everything in one spot. And the detective kind of cocks his head a little bit and does some homework, and it turns out that Rooney Mara is the girl that Dave Franco was having a discussion with, and she's the exploitee of the Act 1 kerfuffle. So the detective looks into things and figures out that of all the things that are going on with this social media site, so the detective does some homework on the social media darling and what ties everything together, and it turns out that so again, he's a little suspicious because of her association with somebody who was murdered, and he has that link. So he starts looking into it. Of course, he doesn't tell Rooney Mara this, and he does some homework and figures out that her cell phone is in the location of each one of these people's last IP address before they die, and goes back and accuses, well, not accuses, but he asks her questions as to why she was in the town of each of these people right before they went missing. And we have a typical Pamela Voorhees style confession where she says that of all these children across the country, they don't understand that they shouldn't be doing these things on the internet. They're not only harming themselves, they're harming their family, they're harming their friends. And most importantly, I just wanted to make sure that I could help these people and fix the problems. So it turns out that she created this Facebook type software that goes back to the reason that we were in Southern California. It could be Stanford, it could be any Silicon Valley type college. That's where this college that her and Dave Franco were at. So she has the knowledge to create such a site. The odds are a little scarce that she would create this juggernaut, but she did, and she had the access to all of the anything that was going on with that site, and she used it for ill. And it turns out in her confession that the detective wants to take her in, and she says, "I'm the most powerful female in this country. There's no way they're going to believe any of this." And the detective calls back up, and she takes her whatever. Insert. It's got to. I guess we have to do a blade here because it's a slasher. So she has some sort of knife and something, and she. I guess we'll call it a filleted penis.
Woo!
Yeah, I don't know how again, I don't know how the details would come across in a film like this, but she's very vindictive, sexually speaking, and
no shit.
So yeah, she has her way with the detective, and she manages to manipulate some of the things that he was said because she's a computer whiz, and she's got things going on. And her big confession is that all males. She sets up like this YouTube, Google Hangout, you name it. This post that there's an epidemic in this country, and people are exploiting sex acts, and she pins it all on the detective. And we pan back or we pull back, and there's just millions of screens of people watching this, and they're starting to turn on this detective, and people just believe it because of public opinion. And the last shot we see is Mimara just taking in all these people's things, and she's still going. There's no jump scare at the end, but we don't get her.
Nice. Well, goddamn, that detective, that's basically the universe telling you to go fuck yourself. Jesus Christ. You lose your dick, you lose your credibility, and now you're the killer. Goddamn. Somebody fucked up in a previous life. Oh, man.
Right.
Well, that's cool. That's a good reveal because she's not like this, she's not like a Meryl Streep necessarily, but she's a real recognizable face that's done a few things within the genre. So you see her and you're like, wait a minute now. Like, all of a sudden you're in yeah, exactly, okay.
Well,
I understand why you didn't...
I didn't reveal it. Technically you could have her in the first act and just kind of have it be like a thing where she burrows herself because of the embarrassment. But the only reason that we get this story, maybe in a flashback you get that, because it really would stain. I'm trying my best not to have people figure it out, but
yeah, I hear you.
Up for it's loose. It's up for interpretation, I guess.
Cool, awesome. I like the classic slasher elements and kind of like you said, the spiritual Friday the 13th revisit, where it's kind of the same skeleton to a degree, but with a much new age skin on it.
Sure.
Very cool.
When Pamela does her confession at the end of one, it's it's weird, but you understand, like you get it. She's crazy, but you get it. Like she wants to make sure that the camp never opened again. So just take that and spin it a little bit. I created this website because I want the people to stop jerking off on camera. So it's similar but different.
It'll never die. Awesome. All right, Act 3, final act of No Stay. Craven finds a path into the basement, which is the only part of the asylum so far that isn't sticking with heat. A dark corridor leads to a doorway with a faint glow and a light fog seeping out. Craven opens the door to reveal a room full of deep freezers. Slowly he opened one of the freezers to reveal the body of Liam. Another freezer reveals what is left of Travis, only recognizable by his small frame. The headless body of Jeff is then found. Craven goes to open the next freezer but is stopped by the long squeak of a door opening. The figure is standing in the doorway holding his bone saw. With nothing to defend himself, Craven accepts his fate. The figure reveals his other hand holding the rusted rod from earlier and tosses it to Craven as a silent challenge. A fight ensues with Craven continuously bashing against the figure to no avail. The riot armor deflects any damage or pain that Craven tries to inflict. A quick slash of the bone saw takes 3 of Craven's fingers, making him drop the pipe. The figure picks up the rod and approaches Craven as he screams on the ground. Just as he raises the rod for the kill, Strick tackles the figure. Strick struggles to hold him down as Craven grabs the ring of keys hanging from the figure's belt. Craven and Strick run out of the room, slamming the door shut and wedging it closed with a chair. They run for the entrance and scramble to find the key to the deadbolt. Just as they unlock the chain, a sharp surgical hammer cracks the back of Strick's skull. Strick falls to the ground and sees Wesley standing over him. "So you were both just going to leave me here?" A flashback shows that Strick and Wesley encountered the figure while Craven was in the guard booth. Strick pushed Wesley aside and shut the door behind him to aid his own escape. Strick tries to shield himself from further blows from the hammer, but Wesley keeps swinging, breaking through the bones of Strick's arms, his ribs, and eventually smashing his skull into paste. All the while, Craven looks on in shock. Wesley walks towards Craven and smashes his kneecap, rendering him nearly immobile. The figure slashes across Wesley's back and a fight ensues. The hammer seems to hurt the figure as the pointed end manages to pierce through the armor plating. The figure continues to slash at Wesley, taking off an ear along with part of his face. More blows from the hammer weaken the figure as Craven crawls his way to the door. Wesley has tackled the figure to the floor and continues to bash at anything that he can. The figure grabs his hand and swings, and the two struggle to overpower the other. Craven manages to stand up and limp through the door that is now unlocked. Looking to his side, the figure sees his bone saw, and after a few moments of hesitation, he grabs the weapon and begins stabbing Wesley continuously in the chest and stomach, spilling out his organs. Craven is outside limping as fast as he can, screaming for help. The area is completely abandoned and only the trees and darkness surround the asylum. Craven limps towards a gate, and when he is suddenly hit in the back of the neck with a dart. He looks back to see the figure holding a rifle, and his eyes fade to black as the figure walks towards him. Craven awakens hours later in a parking lot. As he sits up and his vision comes back to him, he notices that he is covered in blood, holding the bone saw. Next to him is the gutted body of Wesley. Sirens and red and blue lights surround Craven as gun after gun is drawn on him. His pleas and cries fall on deaf ears as the officers look on in horror. Weeks later, Craven is back in prison. His case has been puzzled over and plastered all over the news. "Murderer comes back from the dead to continue killing spree" is often echoed from the faint volume of the TV down the cell block. Once again, awaiting his nearing execution, Craven shakes and trembles at the thought of getting back into the chair. The Guardian approaches Craven's cell. "You've got to believe me, I didn't do this," says Craven. "Doesn't matter to them, son. You're a convicted killer, and quite honestly, you've pissed them off now that it looks like they're too incompetent to kill you properly. I wish like hell it didn't have to be this way, but the whole country is now watching. They aren't going to let this linger," replied the Guardian. "What about the hospital? Why isn't anyone looking for the building that I told them about? This guy is still out there," says Craven. "Even if anyone believed your story, kid, there's no way that they are going to spend the time or money to search for one specific abandoned building in this state, let alone sweep the place. The victim's family is not going to rest until they see you dead, and all of this is just going to be taken as a way to delay the inevitable," replied the Guardian. After a few moments of holding back tears, "Do you believe me?" asked Craven. "As crazy as this all sounds, I'm willing to believe quite a bit, being that I'm looking at you living and breathing again," said the Guardian. Somehow, that small reassurance that he isn't crazy alleviates all of Craven's pain and fear. The cell opens, and Craven once again takes the first steps of his last walk alongside the Guardian. Craven sits in the chair and gets strapped in once again, facing the family of his victims, now accompanied by a row of bright lights and cameras. Before he walks away, the Guardian is stopped by Craven, who asks, "The first time I did this, I could barely breathe. I could feel every ounce of blood pump through my veins. The lights were blinding, the air was cold. Now I just want it to be over. It's so much easier to die when you've already felt it." The Guardian walks back to Craven and whispers, "You've died once already, but make no mistake, the second time will be much, much worse." Craven's eyes look on in horror as the poison enters his veins and his eyes fade to black. Roll credits. Before the post-credit scene. Or mid-credit scene, I guess. You know, we do that shit nowadays. Mid-credit scene. The Guardian is shown in the freezer room with another man. I thought you said there'd be 6, asked the man. One of them got a little messy and the other will be delayed a little, says the Guardian. Fine, but you're only getting 12,000. They aren't interested in harvesting organs from thin air. I've had an arrangement with your boss for years. I get the price that is agreed upon and you get the difference made up in our next meeting. I've always come through. That may be the deal you had with him, but I'm running things now and I don't accept half measures. The man has helpers begin to strap freezers on dollies as the Guardian walks to the solitary confinement wing of the asylum. He looks into the only locked cell to see Craven strapped to an old chair, barely conscious, awaiting his next game. The Guardian walks away, pulls the skull face mask over his head, and reaches for a power switch on the wall. The man and his helpers are shown wheeling out the freezers and stopped to see an entrance that is chained up and deadbolted. The lights go out. End movie.
God damn. From what it sounds like, it sounds like Saw meets Hostel meets The Collector meets Repo Man.
The Collector was a big influence.
Okay.
So yeah, that's definitely in there. As far as the style, I'm kind of going for the tension and the camera work and everything that Fede used in Don't Breathe, but the gore and the brutality that he used in Evil Dead.
Yeah,
really?
We're on the same page. Fede's winning this one. That's all there is to it.
Exactly.
Wait, hold on. I just wanted to. I had a note that I was trying to focus to the camera. So the filleting of the penis scene, I made a note to reference Gone Girl. If any of you have, without spoiling anything, there's a particular seduction / interesting death in the middle there. Are you sure what I'm talking? Do you know what I'm talking about, Cody?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, so it's in that light. So when the things are going bad, when the detective accuses Rooney Mara, she uses her sexuality a bit, and they get a little hot and heavy, and then she decides to, while she has the moment, to fillet a penis, a la Gone Girl, but it's not. It's similar but different. Again, I apologize. It was just a note that, because you're painting such a beautiful picture, I'm just like, yeah, this guy does that, and then this person does that, and movie over.
Oh man, yeah. Okay, very similar scene. So the scene when Doogie Howser comes and goes at the same time.
Yeah.
That one.
And again, back to the subtext. I'm glad you said it, so that now I'll piggyback you and spoil it just as much. She waits until he comes to kill him, and it's quite a perfect synergy. He's losing liquid from every orifice, so that so something to that effect.
I think I'm going to choose not to have visual aid in this section of the video. We're gonna let our commentary roll through. I'm not gonna have pictures fade in and fade out in this part.
Rotten in Denmark.
Yeah, exactly. So introduce CP in the correct way. Awesome.
Apologies
God
to
damn.
those image, whatever you're seeing in your head right now.
Hey, you never know, man. People are crazy. You might get 35 votes on that last line alone. You never know.
I was with Cody until the losing the liquid scene.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right, people. Well, that is the conclusion of episode 2 of Pitch Wars. Cast your votes down below. Very important. Please do not forget to do this. I had a lot of people comment on the last video how awesome it was, but forgot to vote. So, No Stay or The Virus. Put your vote down below for which script you want to see made into a movie. Be sure to go over to Will I Like It Reviews, give CP a like and a subscribe. Keep an eye on Lee, Drum Dums, you know him, over on his channel for Scream Stream. Whenever we get that rolling again, you'll see all 3 of us back together eventually. CP, tell us one more time about your channel, where we can find it.
Will I Like It Reviews at YouTube, YouTube.com/C/WILI. My name is not Will, for those of you who come across. It's Will I Like It Reviews, and it's me asking for you, the audience, will I like it? Although it's been an awfully long time since I've done a review, so have a look around. There's something for everybody. Another 2 months, it'll go back to some sort of form of regularity. I promise. By November, it'll be back to normal.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely go over there, guys. Like I said, be sure to cast your votes down below and put your commentary on this episode, whether or not you liked it or you want to see it go in a different direction. Put all of your thoughts on this second episode of Pitch Wars down in the comment section below. Please like and share. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you want to check out my social media links, I got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter down below, and my Patreon page for a lot of exclusive content for Patronize only. And if you want to check out some more of my videos as well as CPs, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.